In the wake of this incident, President Trump sticking to his planned schedule today, including a rally this evening in Wisconsin. Late this afternoon, the president held a previously planned opioid prevention event at the White House, where notably First Lady Melania Trump first made remarks on the suspicious devices. President Trump then spoke, going off his prepared remarks, to say he's extremely angry and upset about what happened with these bombs. CNN's Jeff Zeleny is at the White House. And Jeff, the president also said Americans must unify in light of this.
Jake, he did. He was standing in the East Room saying Americans must unify. They must come together. He said acts of political violence have no place in the U.S. But what he did not say is the fact that he is the very person often sowing these seeds of anger and distrust, going after some of the same people who were targeted today.
This egregious conduct is abhorrent to everything we hold dear and sacred as Americans.
In the East Room of the White House, President Trump condemning the attempted act of violence today through explosive devices sent to CNN and high-ranking Democratic leaders.
The full weight of our government is being deployed to conduct this investigation and bring those responsible for these despicable acts to justice. We will spare no resources or expense in this effort.
The president issuing a rare call for civility.
In these times, we have to unify. We have to come together and send one very clear, strong, unmistakable message that acts or threats of political violence of any kind have no place in the United States of America.
But not mentioning that he is often the one sowing division. Those targeted, the Clintons, Obamas, former Attorney General Eric Holder, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, Democratic donor George Soros, and CNN, are all favorite subjects of attack by the president and his allies at campaign rallies.
But if you want the fake news to finally investigate Hillary Clinton, we'll just have Don't worry, I don't like him either, okay? Good old Maxine, low IQ individual.
And the president is routinely accusing his rivals of sparking violence.
The choice in November could not be more clear. Democrats produce mobs. Republicans produce jobs. Right?
After briefings by federal authorities, the president did not echo the words of New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, who said the package bombs were a clear act of terrorism. The mayor urging the president and all officials to cool their heated rhetoric.
To all public officials of all partisan affiliations, don't encourage violence. Don't encourage hatred. Don't encourage attacks on media. This atmosphere of hatred is contributing to the choices people are making to turn to violence.
Republican Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona echoing the message from the Democratic mayor.
We've got to tone it down. Got to see people as opponents but not enemies.
13 days before the midterm elections, the attempted attacks carrying strong political overtones. Speaking in Florida today, Hillary Clinton, the recipient of one of the devices, praised law enforcement for stopping the package before it reached her Chappaqua home.
But it is a troubling time, isn't it? And it's a time of deep divisions, and we have to do everything we can to bring our country together.
So what the president did not say today in the East Room was whether if he believes this is an act of domestic terrorism. We tried to ask him after that bill signing event. He would not say. Now, he has been receiving briefings, I'm told, throughout the day here at the White House, including from the director of the FBI. He'll be leaving the White House shortly. We'll see if he adds more onto this at all. But Jake, the central question, as he heads to a campaign rally tonight in Wisconsin, is his tone going to be the same there? Or is it going to be the call for civility that we heard in the East Room today, coming 13 days before the midterm election? Jake?
All right, Jeff Zeleny, thanks so much. I want to bring in CNN national security analyst Lisa Monaco. She's the former assistant to President Obama for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism. Lisa, good to see you as always. You were Homeland Security Advisor in 2013 when letters testing positive for ricin were sent to President Obama and to Congress. What's the process that the White House and authorities are likely going through right now?
That's exactly right, Jake. So what happened there was the standoff facilities, so the facilities outside the White House, outside Congress, and at some distance, were able to fend off and see this and detect that envelope before it reached its intended targets. Now, what happened in that instance is I was immediately on the phone with the head of the Centers for Disease Control, with the director of the FBI, who was at that time Bob Mueller, and with a host of other officials in the government to figure out what did we know, what could we detect, was this a real source of attack in those envelopes, and all of that is going on right now. I think my sense would be that right now the FBI is standing up a command post inside what's called the SIOC, the Strategic Information Operations Center, in headquarters in the FBI right now, bringing in all the information from the various locations where these packages were found or were mailed. All of that information is going to be pooled. It's going to be shared back out with the White House, with the intelligence community, with the rest of the federal government national security team, so they are up to date on exactly what the investigators are finding. All of that is going to be pooled and is going to be reported almost as soon as it's gotten back out to the national security community.
You've also had threats directed at you specifically during your time of public service. What kinds of precautions might the public officials here, the Clintons, the Obamas, Soros, Maxine Waters, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Eric Holder, what might they be taking right now? What kind of precautions?
So, look, I was very fortunate. I never had any suspicious package mailed to me. I did have harassing mail sent to my home, and I was the subject, as was my family, the subject of threats from individuals who were later arrested. Thank you for the very good work by the Secret Service and federal, state, and local partners on that. The Secret Service is exceptionally able. They luckily were able to intercept this with regard to the mailings to President Obama and President Clinton. Obviously, that is not the case with regard to the mailings to former Attorney General Holder. He does not have Secret Service protection. But those Secret Service agents and those protective details have protocols, some of which I'm quite confident they activated last night and this morning to be able to protect their protectees. They are going to be sharing information back with the local law enforcement community in the areas where their protectees are in order to thwart any subsequent attempts and, again, feeding into that SIOC Information Operations Center.
There are often scares when it comes to suspicious packages, but this device was described by a law enforcement official as, quote, rudimentary but functional. The NYPD said it appeared to be live, the one sent to CNN headquarters. What do you make of that?
So that's very concerning, Jake. I mean, rudimentary but functional means rudimentary and potentially lethal. Certainly, the people handling that, unbeknownst to them, folks in the mailroom, civilians who came into contact with those packages before they reached their intended destination, all of those individuals were potentially at risk. So we're going to know a lot more as the investigation goes on and as the commonality, the potential commonality between those devices is understood and the investigation proceeds. But what I understand from the reporting thus far is rudimentary but functional could mean rudimentary but deadly.
The fact that there's a number of these packages, at least 6, does that give you confidence that law enforcement will likely be able to figure out who's behind this with so many clues?
Look, I'm confident that the Joint Terrorism Task Force, which is going to be operating in each one of these locations and pooling information, which is, of course, FBI-led, but very importantly, Jake, has representatives from state and local partners in all of these jurisdictions. They're going to pool their information, their intelligence. The common thread here seems to be this common return address. There will no doubt be leads developed about how these items may have been couriered. Some of them, I understand, as the reporting is coming in thus far, they were not actually mailed, but may have been couriered. All of those things are going to be potential leads, and I'm very confident that the FBI, working with its state and local partners and other federal agencies like the ATF and other entities, are going to be pulling those common data points, and that's going to give them a lot to go on.
If you were advising President Trump right now, what would you tell him?
Jake, I've been in that room advising former president, advising President Obama in the wake of the Boston Marathon bombing, in the wake of this ricin attack, in the wake of mass shootings. The important thing is always to try and bring the country together, to explain to the country, this is what we are doing to keep you safe. This is what we know. Importantly, this is what we don't know. But very importantly, the job of the president in a crisis like this, in a situation like this, is to try and bring the country together, to appeal to the better angels of our nature. And that is the type of message that in the past I've been privileged to be a part of with the former president.
Lisa Monaco, always good to have you on. Thank you so much for your time, your expertise.